Welcome back. You're still watching the Globe on the SABC News Channel, and our focus, of course, on what's happening on the other side of the Atlantic in the United States. And to give us a sense of what's happening, particularly in Washington, D.C., we're now joined live by our correspondent there, Kate Fisher. Kate, thanks so much for joining us. I'm seeing a lot more teams behind you today than yesterday. Is it just the time of day, or is there anticipation that something is going to be happening later today?
I think it's a bit of both, really. There is a feeling that we could know a decisive count in a couple of hours' time. The Secretary of State of Pennsylvania, which is, of course, possibly the most crucial of the 4 states that we are waiting to hear from, because it carries the most electoral votes. It carries 20 electoral votes. So the Secretary of State of Pennsylvania has said that they will be making an announcement at 5:15 local time, which is in around 2 hours' time. And the hope from all the journalists, at least, is that we might get some more information, and potentially decisive information. If they are able to give us a nearly final number of votes, it could tell us who the next president will be. Because if Joe Biden has shortened the gap with Donald Trump is still leading there, but that lead is narrowing swiftly as they count up those postal ballots, those early people who voted early via post or in person. They could not start counting those ballots until polling day, and they've got a lot to get through because most Democrats voted that way. And as they've been counting those, that has shortened Donald Trump's lead considerably, because up to 80% of those ballots are going to Joe Biden, the Democrat. So that is why there is a thought that even though Donald Trump is leading at the moment in Pennsylvania, Biden is doing so well out of those votes that potentially he could overtake Donald Trump. And if he does, that's game over. Joe Biden will be elected president. So we'll find out at 5:15 local time as to what the Pennsylvania Secretary of State wants to tell us. Of course, if they're going to tell us that Donald Trump is still in the lead, then that, you know, keeps the race open and will no doubt really give Donald Trump a bit of a boost.
All right. At the same time, I suppose you've got to keep your eye on Georgia, because they look like that they're not too far away from a result. And again, if that turns for Biden, because it's that close, it could be a game changer as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And who would have thought that Georgia, a deeply red ruby Republican state, could be in play at this stage of the game? A huge kind of victory in sorts, even though they haven't won it yet, for the Democrats to even make it this close. Last week, actually, I did a report for you about a project going on in Georgia called the New Georgia Project, essentially trying to sign up mainly African Americans who had never had their votes registered before. They weren't even on the system. The people who organised that saying that one of the reasons that Georgia has always been Republican is because those African Americans were disenfranchised. They were not getting their say at the polling booth. And now this time their hope is that they've done enough work to sign enough people up from that community who may have made a difference in the results we're seeing in Georgia. But yeah, that's another state where, again, Donald Trump has to win it. Joe Biden would like to win it. And if Joe Biden doesn't win Pennsylvania, he will need to win that as well.
All right, so what's been the chatter from both parties, party leaders during the course of the day? Has anything come out of Donald Trump?
Donald Trump has been surprisingly quiet. We've been seeing him tweeting, but most of those tweets have been either taken down by Twitter or given a label saying that they could be misleading. But he hasn't been out in front of television cameras. He's sent out surrogates, mainly his family and his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, to continue to expound his opinion that this election, that there's been fraud in this election, and that he should be winning, etc. But he himself hasn't been seen since he made his speech in the early hours of the morning, just after the polls had closed. And during that speech, he declared victory, even though all the votes hadn't yet been counted. We haven't seen him on camera since then. Now, that could be because his team felt that didn't go down very well, not just here in the US, but across the rest of the world, and he hasn't been back out in front of the cameras yet. Joe Biden has spoken. He spoke yesterday, a kind of fairly presidential sounding speech. He didn't declare victory, but he did almost as much as that and called for calm and patience. We understand that Joe Biden today has been in a coronavirus briefing, so not even, not all of his attention hasn't just been on this race. He's also looking ahead to, if he does win the White House, the kind of things he's going to have to deal with once he's there. No sign, though, that Donald Trump has been spending much time on strategizing over how the US can confront coronavirus, though, today.
How have supporters been behaving? I mean, yesterday we saw images of Trump supporters in some states saying, stop the counting, in other states saying, carry on counting, and it almost looked quite intimidating, actually. What's it been like today? Is that mood continued?
Yeah, there have been a few incidents where it has looked very intimidating. One of them was in Detroit, in Michigan, where Donald Trump supporters came to try to stop people from counting the vote, and they were aggressive about that. And there have been a few other incidences. I know in Pennsylvania a similar thing has happened, but there's also been people celebrating in Pennsylvania. There's kind of dueling protests going on. I think it's interesting that it certainly hasn't been as bad as some people were concerned it would be. There was concern ahead of the election that there could be a lot of civil unrest while this kind of strange limbo period was going on, because I think we kind of knew that unless it was a landslide, it was going to be days rather than hours until we had a result. And the concern was that Donald Trump could perhaps rile up his supporters to go out into the streets, and then there could be a response from Joe Biden's supporters. But actually it has been fairly calm, and those incidents have been isolated. We, as I say, haven't heard from Donald Trump for some time, and that has perhaps helped to calm things.
All right, so all of this attention, of course, necessarily on the election, but as you mentioned, Joe Biden on coronavirus watch, and this is the worst of times in terms of this COVID-19 pandemic. How much chatter is there about that over this sort of noised out time by the election?
Yeah, it's almost as though the American news networks have forgotten that there is a pandemic going on, and that infection rates are rising almost everywhere across the United States. There is virtually no coverage of that, certainly on the television networks. They are all obsessively looking at these 4 states in particular where we still are waiting to hear results. And yeah, coronavirus hasn't been in the news, despite the fact it is just as bad, if not worse, than it has been over the last few months. Again, it doesn't seem as if the president has been spending much time on that either, but Joe Biden, perhaps his campaign, wanting to make sure that people knew that he was also looking at the single, probably biggest challenge that will face him if he gets the White House, aside from, of course, the challenge of the fact that this country is still so polarized.
All right, and then perhaps as a final question, I know that journalists talk amongst themselves, and you get nods from analysts and people from the inside. What's the conventional wisdom in terms of which state might be next to get declared?
Well, the feeling is that it could be Pennsylvania, where we get certainly the biggest suggestion of who is going to take that state. This sometime today, in fact, the Secretary of State of Pennsylvania was on CNN, the news channel here, saying that she thought that there would be some kind of final tally by the end of today. Now, I don't know whether that means by the end of the business day or by midnight tonight. but she seemed confident, even though they've got a lot of votes still to get through. She said her teams were working very efficiently, and she was confident that we could hear something. And of course, hearing from Pennsylvania could be, as I say, decisive, because if it goes to Joe Biden, then he's made it. He's got that 270 electoral college votes, and it is game over for Donald Trump.
All right, so Kate Fisher, we'll leave it there for the time being. Thanks very much indeed. And let's hope that next time we chat, it'll be done and dusted and we can get back to our normal lives.
You never know.
You never know. Thanks so much. That's Kate Fisher, our correspondent in Washington, D.C. So Pennsylvania, let me tell you, at the moment, they say that they're 92% of the votes done. So there's 8% left. Trump has got 50.2% of the vote with 3.238 million votes, and Biden 48.5% with 3.131 million votes. So there's about 120,000 votes in it. But as I said, there's 8% still left to be counted in that state. And all the mail-in ballots have kind of tended to go towards Joe Biden, and in part because President Trump was discouraging Republicans to send their votes by mail, saying show up on the day. So perhaps this has worked against him in the end, because the Democrats, well, they've been voting for the past few weeks, and they showed up in their numbers, and those numbers are starting to come through now, which is why you saw initially there was this surge for Red and Donald Trump, because they normally start with the votes of the people that voted on the day, and then only then they start counting the mail-in ballots and the extra votes. And that's where we're starting to see Joe Biden catching up. But the question is there enough of those votes for him to catch up and surpass Donald Trump in these crucial states? Well, we'll have to wait and see and find out.